Hello, my name is Clara and I'm here with my husband Lucas to share our story. Before I dive in, let me set the stage for you. The first time I met Lucas's parents, Mia and Sophie, was far from the warm welcome I had hoped for. Their reaction, well, here it goes. I can't believe you're with Clara. Lucas, she has nothing to offer, just a basic office job. How is she supposed to contribute to a better life for us? They criticized sharply, but Lucas stood firm. I love, and that's all that matters to me. Her financial situation is irrelevant. I've told you this before. They, however, wouldn't budge. We've been clear, Lucas, if she can't bring more to the table, we can't accept her into this family. You need to reconsider. Lucas didn't flinch. No, Clara is the one I've chosen. I had everything planned out for the proposal and now you've ruined it. I was stunned. Lucas's intention to propose was a complete surprise. After 4 years together, I had hoped it might happen one day, but this sudden declaration mixed with the tension caught me off guard, and the way his parents reacted, that was even more concerning. Lucas had warned me before this meeting. He told me, Clara, I know you hold your father in high regard and probably think my parents are the same, but they're not the kind-hearted people you imagine. I had responded naively, how can you say that about them? They raised you. They must have done something right. They raised me, yes, but it wasn't out of love. Everything they did, sending me to college, pushing me to succeed, was because they expected to benefit from it. They want me to marry someone wealthy, someone who can provide them with the life they've always wanted. They'll be disappointed when they learn about your job. I had no idea parents could be so selfish. My own family had always been loving and supportive. Meanwhile, Lucas, despite providing financial help to his parents, had a strained relationship with them, burdened by their constant manipulation and self-centeredness. Yet no matter how much he disliked their behavior, he couldn't fully cut ties with them, haunted by their reminders of the sacrifices they made for him. That first meeting revealed their true colors. Despite their disapproval, Lucas proposed to me and we began planning our wedding. Mia and Sophie initially refused to attend, making it clear they were unhappy with the match, but with Lucas's family being small, he longed for their presence and eventually convinced them to come. Their sudden change of heart came when they learned about my family's financial standing. My father owned a home and some property. Their attendance, however, came with strings attached. Clara, they said coolly, we still don't approve of this marriage. Lucas has done well for himself and we expected him to aim higher financially. Frankly, we wouldn't have come if we thought your family had nothing. At least your father has some assets. Don't forget what we did for you when you come into your inheritance on my wedding day. Their mention of inheritance was not only inappropriate but downright infuriating, adding my father was alive and well, making their comments deeply offensive. I walked away from them fuming. My father was my only family and their boldness in expecting a share of my finances was both hurtful and astounding. Still, I chose not to burden Lucas with this on our special day, knowing how difficult it was for him to navigate his strained relationship with his parents. Sadly, that day marked the beginning of ongoing tensions. Although Lucas and I were blissfully happy, his parents never stopped meddling in our finances, always probing about my father's wealth. We never indulged their curiosity, but their pestering only increased. Their entitlement became unbearable, as if they had any right to know the details of my father's financial situation. Then just a few months later, my father passed away. His death came far too soon, barely 4 months after his diagnosis, and the grief was overwhelming. Watching him deteriorate had been agonizing, and though I Knew the end was inevitable, nothing prepared for the finality of losing him. Throughout it all, Lucas was my rock. He stood by me during the funeral arrangements, traveling with me to my father's hometown to help with everything. But even in the midst of my grief, Mia and Sophie's insensitivity knew no bounds. They bombarded me with intrusive calls and messages, all asking about the inheritance and funeral costs. Lucas and I were appalled by their lack of compassion, but we decided to hold off on confronting them until after the funeral, not wanting to add more stress during such a difficult time. However, as soon as we returned home, Mia and Sophie wasted no time. They barged into our lives again, eager to press us for details. Now that the funeral's over, Sophie began, "We're dying to know, did your father leave you the house? He must have, right?" I was stunned by her audacity. "Why on earth would my inheritance be any of your concern?" I shot back, barely containing my shock. Sophie didn't even flinch. "Oh come on, Clara, since Lucas chose you, we've always been curious with your average job and looks. We figured there had to be some financial reason. We thought it must be the money." Lucas immediately stepped in, furious. "How dare you say that? I've told you time and again that I married Clara for love, not money. You need to respect that." But Sophie pressed on, undeterred. "We're just asking Lucas if she has money. It's a relief, honestly. Knowing you married someone with assets would be a comfort. It'd be nice to know you've secured something for our future." Their priorities were clear, and their total lack of decency was astonishing. To accuse their own son of marrying for money, especially at such a painful time, was beyond appalling. How Lucas emerged as kind-hearted as he is from such selfish people was a mystery to me. "Enough with the games, Clara," Mia chimed in. "We've been waiting to hear about the inheritance. Your father must have left something substantial. What about the house? We could use it. You know, we're family now." After all, their blatant greed and audacity left me speechless, but I knew this was my moment to set things straight. I looked them both in the eye, calm but resolute. "Actually, the house wasn't in my father's name when he passed. He had to let it go due to financial circumstances." Their reaction was predictably vicious. "So you're saying he didn't even leave you the house? He was basically broke?" Mia scoffed. "I see now. No wonder you've always been so modest. Your father couldn't even hold on to his home. What a disgrace, dying with nothing." Lucas couldn't stand it any longer. "That's enough. Clara's value isn't measured by an inheritance, and I didn't marry her for money. You've crossed a line. Show some respect, especially now." The confrontation exposed their greed for what it was: a shameless fixation on material wealth with no regard for love or decency. The conversation laid bare their true priorities, and it became clear that no amount of reasoning could change their warped outlook on life. In an outrageous display of entitlement, Lucas's parents went so far as to say they wouldn't allow him to stay married to me. They expressed their disappointment that he'd married into what they considered a financially inferior family. Worse yet, they accused me of betraying Lucas for his wealth and vowed to keep me from isolating him from his supposed fortune. They even began pressuring Lucas to divorce me, insisting he marry someone richer who could fund the lavish lifestyle they believed they deserved. It left Lucas torn between his love for me and the toxic manipulation of his parents. I knew it was crucial to address the situation directly. I urged Lucas to consider the extent of his parents' manipulative behavior and question if he was willing to let their greed dictate our future. "Lucas, are you really going to let your parents' obsession with money destroy us?" "I've kept quiet about their accusations to spare you the guilt of distancing yourself from them, but can we really allow them to keep influencing our lives like this. Lucas reached his breaking point and recognized the toxic influence his parents had over him. Enough is enough, he declared. Mom, Dad, your actions today have exposed your selfishness. You've used my hard work to satisfy your materialistic desires for years. I can't accept this any longer. His parents desperately tried to justify their demands, claiming that their interference was for Lucas's benefit and that he owed them for their financial support over the years. They even suggested he should divorce me and find a wealthier partner, promising their help to avoid further mistakes. However, Lucas remained resolute, refusing to end our marriage based on financial considerations. I'm not divorcing Clara just because she didn't receive an inheritance. I'm tired of being manipulated by your greed. From now on, you are no longer part of my life, he affirmed, choosing our love and integrity over their materialistic demands. Mia and Sophie, facing our decision, vehemently opposed Lucas's choice to stay married to me. They warned him of imagined dire consequences, doubting my worth and predicting my betrayal would lead to his financial ruin. Amid their relentless criticism, I decided it was time to reveal my actual financial status, hoping this would not only silence them but also reaffirm Lucas's confidence in his choice. There's no need to worry, I said calmly. I'm not interested in Lucas's money. I have my own financial resources, more than enough to support both of us. Their skepticism was immediate. Stop pretending, Clara, we're not fooled. We know you don't have the means, they retorted, convinced I was after Lucas's wealth out of desperation and deceit. To their astonishment, I clarified, actually I'm not in need. My bank account holds $65 million, a legacy from my father, not earned through my job but inherited directly. Their denial was instant. That's impossible, you said your father left nothing behind, they argued, convinced I was trying to deceive them. Yet Lucas signaled me to continue, fully aware of the truth. When I showed them my bank balance, their skepticism turned to shock. They couldn't believe their eyes and insisted, this can't be real, you must have falsified these records. They questioned the source of my wealth. Given my earlier statement about my father's assets, I had left out one detail. My father owned a large ranch where he lived. He sold the ranch and the house before his passing, giving me an early inheritance. He chose to enter hospice on his own terms, not wanting me to bear the financial burden of his care. Unlike you, he valued my well-being over his financial legacy. This revelation was meant to not only silence their greed but also highlight the stark difference in values between us and them, affirming our unity and resolve against their materialistic intrusions. Mia and Sophie were visibly shaken and skeptical, struggling to reconcile the reality with their preconceived notions. They turned to Lucas for confirmation, and once he affirmed my story, a brief silence followed. Then, as if on cue, their attitude shifted dramatically. They praised the situation, lamented their previous doubts, and expressed their newfound joy over my financial status. What wonderful news! We were so worried, but it turns out our son chose wisely. Clara, you really should have shared about your wealth earlier, they effusively stated, trying to rewrite the narrative as if they had always supported us. Lucas's expression conveyed everything I needed to know. He was ready to confront the situation, and I trusted him to represent both of us. His frustration flared as he demanded an explanation from his parents, incredulous at their sudden shift from antagonists to would-be allies simply because money was now in the picture. How can you even think of acting like family now after everything you've said and done? He challenged them. Their defense was weak, claiming ignorance due to my supposed secrecy about my financial situation. We didn't know she was wealthy. Had we known our reactions might have been different, they argued, hoping for a quick resolution and forgiveness, but Lucas was resolute, his decision unwavering. No, this is unforgivable. You've shown your true colors, prioritizing money over genuine concern and empathy. Right after Clara's father's funeral, instead of offering support, you saw an opportunity to benefit yourselves. That's inexcusable, he continued, setting a firm boundary. Your actions today have shown that we need to protect our peace and well-being from your toxicity. Leave our home and do not expect any assistance from us moving forward. From now on you're on your own. In that moment Lucas stood firm, prioritizing our dignity and the sanctity of our marriage over his parents' manipulative behavior, marking a decisive end to their influence in our lives. He made it clear that there would be no further financial assistance from us, stating they had forfeited any right to support given their actions. This announcement sparked an explosive reaction from Mia and Sophie. Their anger quickly turned to desperation as they pleaded not to be cut off from our lives. However, their pleas were met with indifference, especially from Lucas, whose patience had worn thin. He warned them that if they refused to leave he would involve the police. This ultimatum prompted their departure, though they continued to bombard us with calls and messages, leading us to block their numbers and warn them against further harassment under threat of legal action. In the days that followed, Lucas took charge of handling the fallout with his parents, giving me the space to mourn my father. I spent this time reflecting on the cherished moments we shared. My father's foresight and selflessness were evident in his decision to sell his property, ensuring I wouldn't be burdened, and even covering his hospice care with the proceeds, an ultimate act of parental love. Meanwhile, Lucas grappled with the loss of his family ties. Although it was a liberation from their toxicity, he faced criticism from some for his stance. However, sharing the full extent of their behavior turned public opinion against Mia and Sophie, leaving them isolated in their disgrace. Our efforts to cut contact, including changing the locks, continued as their attempts to reach out persisted, leading us to consider legal restraining orders as a final measure. Amidst these challenges, we received the joyful news of my pregnancy. While it is bittersweet that my father won't be here to share in this new chapter, the anticipation of welcoming our child has brought Lucas and me closer together, filling us with excitement and hope for the future. We look forward to embracing the joys of parenthood and cherishing every moment of this unexpected blessing.